May 31st, a day like any other, or so you might think. But here on our channel, we say there's no such thing as an ordinary day because every day is full of surprises. And that's especially true if you go back in time and see what happened on this day in history. Some of these events change the world, while others only change the world of a very small number of people. So let's go back in time and find out what happened on this day. But before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode. We're going back to 16th century Amsterdam. The year before, King Philip II of Spain had ordered the demolition of one of Amsterdam's chapels. And, though construction of the new building was completed, the townspeople were still angry about the loss of their chapel, so much so that they would protest. The demolition was led by the king's sister and regent of the Netherlands, Engel Korsendochter. She oversaw many religious reforms, including the closure of around 700 non-Catholic places of worship, which included the chapel that had been torn down in Amsterdam. It was replaced with a new building called the Spanish Pavilion. But the townspeople didn't take kindly to this, especially after construction of the new building was completed and it was left empty for 2 years. They believed the building was being used to house Spanish troops and considered this a threat to the security of the town. They weren't entirely wrong, and eventually their protests got so bad that military intervention was required. Korthals was forced to flee and spent the next 3 years living in hiding. During this time, the Dutch rebels grew bolder and even attacked the governor's palace. When Kortland's brother Ferdinand took over as stadhouder, he attempted to crush the rebellion. But when his forces were defeated, he fled, and the rebels seized control of the city. Though England became a republic in 1580, the Dutch remained loyal to the Spanish crown until 1648. And now we're moving to America for the first Memorial Day parade. In 1868, General John Logan, who had served under General Ulysses Grant during the Civil War, wanted to find a way to honor the soldiers who died during the conflict. He founded an organization known as the Grand Army of the Republic, which aimed to unite former Union soldiers. One of its first acts was to set aside the last Monday in May to decorate the graves of fallen comrades. This day quickly caught on and spread across the country. In 1869, the first Memorial Day parade was held in Ironton, Ohio. It was organized by GAR members and local businesses closed so residents could attend. Though it's unclear whether this was the very first parade, it is one of the earliest that was well documented. Over the years, the holiday has evolved. While it was originally meant to honor those who died in the Civil War, it now includes those who have died in all American wars. President Lyndon B. Johnson officially established Memorial Day as a federal holiday in 1971. But now we're going to Europe, where we'll stay for the next few entries. On this day in 1906, King Alfonso XIII of Spain was nearly assassinated. He had just married his cousin, Victoria Eugenie of Battenberg, and the couple were riding through Barcelona in an open carriage. They were greeted by huge crowds and everything seemed to be going well. Then, suddenly, an anarchist threw a small bomb towards the carriage. It missed its target but exploded on a nearby lamppost. The king and queen were unharmed, but 7 people standing nearby were killed and 25 more were injured. The motive behind the attack was revenge. The anarchist felt the royal family was too closely related and wanted to throw them into turmoil. Though King Alfonso and Queen Victoria Eugenie were unhurt, this event would come back to haunt them. Years later, the king was forced to abdicate the throne in favor of his son due to growing unrest and the possibility of another anarchist attack. This made King Alfonso the last king of Spain and also the last Bourbon to rule the country. Now we're staying in Europe, but we're jumping ahead almost 50 years to June 1956. It was a tense time in Israel. Adolf Eichmann had been kidnapped by agents of the Jewish state and brought to trial in Jerusalem. He was one of the main organizers of the Holocaust and had been on the run since the end of World War II. Eventually, he was found living in Argentina and taken to Israel. An international court ruled that his capture was illegal, but refused to return him to Germany. Eichmann was tried in secret and found guilty of 15 counts of crimes against humanity. Some of the charges included conspiracy to commit crimes, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the deportation of Jews from Austria and France to death camps. It was said he orchestrated the killings of more than 6 million Jews and oversaw the creation of ghettos and helped establish the infamous yellow star that Jews were forced to wear. Eichmann claimed that he was just following orders, but this did not save him from execution. On June 1, 1962, Eichmann was hanged in a secret ceremony and his body was cremated. His remains were scattered into the sea to ensure that nobody would know exactly where he was buried. And now we're going to move away from humanity and talk about something that affects all of us: earthquakes. Every year around the world, there are thousands of earthquakes, but most aren't strong enough to cause much damage. Every once in a while, there's one that really packs a punch. And on May 31, 1935, the world experienced one of the worst earthquakes in history. At 5:50 p.m. local time, a 7.7 magnitude earthquake devastated the city of Quetta, in what is today Pakistan. The quake's epicenter was relatively close to the city and it caused widespread destruction. Most buildings in the city were completely destroyed, and thousands of homes were either destroyed or heavily damaged. It left some 40,000 people dead and many more injured. Aid was slow to arrive because the nearest rail line was 100 miles away. And to make matters worse, heavy rains came through the area shortly after the earthquake, which created dangerous landslides and contaminated water supplies. The disaster is considered one of the deadliest earthquakes of the 20th century and is still one of the worst natural disasters in Pakistan's history. Now, it's time to move things back to the United States for our final entry. We're going to stay in the early 1900s and talk about a plane crash that ended the life of a famous aviator. On May 31, 1947, Harold Galbraith Hap Arnold was piloting a C-69 transport plane over Peoria, Illinois. He was on his way to Vancouver, British Columbia, to inspect Army air bases. It was a routine flight that would soon turn into anything but. As the plane flew over the Mississippi River, it began to experience mechanical problems. Arnold managed to radio in the issue and get clearance to land at a nearby airport. But shortly after, the pilot reported engine failure. He put in a distress call and requested help, but before anyone could respond, the plane crashed into a group of trees near the river. All 4 people on board were killed. News of the crash spread quickly and a rescue mission was mounted, but there wasn't much hope that anyone had survived. The wreckage was burned and scorched, which indicated the plane may have caught fire on impact. When investigators arrived at the scene, they found the bodies of the 4 crew members. One of the passengers was identified as Hap Arnold. He had been the chief of staff of the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II and had played a major role in winning the war. But his legacy has been tainted by controversy. Many believe he kept secret a unit of spy planes that carried out covert missions over the Soviet Union. After his death, the U.S. government declassified documents that revealed the existence of the 13th Photo Reconnaissance Group. They conducted 370 missions between 1946 and 1947 and took pictures of Soviet territory. This led to calls for Arnold's body to be disinterred and reburied with full military honors. However, this was never done, and he remains buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Now, it's time to hear from you. Which of these events surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.